When you think of agriculture in Maine, blueberries and maple syrup probably come to mind, right? But federal officials say the state is also a hotbed for illegal marijuana farms, with many linked to Chinese organized crime. CBS's Nicole Skenga has our CBS News investigation.
Along Maine's rocky shoreline sits the quiet town of Machias.
People lobster fish, they clam and they log.
But last fall, a pungent smell woke up the neighbors. Local police and Chief Keith Mercier discovering more than $1 million in black market weed.
It was very organized.
More than 2,600 plants seized by police. Just one case in a $1 billion black market marijuana boom now descending on rural states like Maine.
How in the world did black market marijuana set up shop here?
I think that was one of the draws, was being a rural community.
It's very isolated.
Ray Donovan is the former chief of operations for the DEA.
That would allow them to continue to grow the marijuana crops uninhibited.
Sheriff's office! Come out with your hands up!
Law enforcement now cracking down with at least 34 busts statewide since last June and more targets dotting the I-95 corridor.
The information we have says that there's over 200 that are actively working right now.
24 states have legalized recreational marijuana, but most, including Maine, limit cultivation and impose steep taxes.
They're not buying licenses, they're not paying taxes, they're operating completely off the radar.
Editor of the Maine Wire, Steve Robinson, tracks suspected illegal grows.
A transformer of that size could probably serve 10, 15 homes.
And showed us this chicken barn turned illegal weed grow in Carmel, Maine.
These locations consume huge amounts of electricity.
But perhaps more shocking than the budding number of illegal grows, who is behind them?
By and large, we see Chinese organized crime behind black market marijuana.
Donovan says some criminal growers are also laundering millions through a deadlier drug trade.
Law enforcement figured out that the Chinese were running illegal marijuana grows by following the fentanyl supply chain.
That's correct.
Wow.
A dangerous network hiding out in an unlikely corner of America. Nicole Skenga, CBS News, Machias, Maine.
With recreational marijuana now legal in 24 states, the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration is moving to reclassify the drug to a less dangerous category under the Controlled Substances Act. And for the first time, a new survey shows that daily marijuana users now outnumber daily drinkers. In tonight's Eye on America, Nikki Batiste reports that it's a development driven by Gen Z.
Behind this cloud of marijuana smoke is a new kind of office for Gen Zers.
Here, we smoke because it enhances our work. That's our secret sauce.
Work and Roll is a shared workspace in New York City where, for as little as $15, you can toke while you type. This downtown loft space is capitalizing on a trend among today's young workers. Forget after-work happy hour at a favorite watering hole. Weed is the new way to go.
I think this is like the mecca of the cannabis industry.
Matthew Everett, Golda Moldovsky, and Ellis Sudak, all in their mid-20s, are like the 69% of people their age who say they prefer marijuana to alcohol, according to a cannabis research firm.
I transitioned over into cannabis because I saw that there's limitless possibilities with the flavors, and I found, like, hey, I don't have a hangover the next day, too.
Were any of you big alcohol drinkers?
I was, yeah.
Marijuana sales among Gen Z women in particular have more than doubled since the pandemic lockdown in 2020. At Work and Roll, alcohol is prohibited, but it's perfectly fine to bring your own cannabis or even have it delivered.
Cannabis to your door.
Cannabis to your door.
No stigma, no criminality, no problem.
It's alarming.
The alarm, says addiction psychiatrist Colin Reeve, comes from the scientific evidence. One recent study associates schizophrenia with excessive cannabis use among some young people, especially young men, at an age when their brains are still maturing.
Legalized age for cannabis should be around 33 years old, when people are outside the window of developing schizophrenia and bipolar disorder and a lot of other things. Or most certainly it should be after 26, once the prefrontal cortex is done developing.
Do patients come in and say, I'm smoking pot because it's better for me than alcohol?
Yeah, and people come in and they tell me, hey, cannabis is healthy, right? I can use it. Or people say, hey, cannabis is used for pain. Doesn't mean it's healthy. It means it's being used as a medicine by those people.
It's still a drug.
It's still a drug.
Potency is the key. According to the latest figures, the average level of THC, that's the main ingredient in marijuana that triggers a high, jumped from 4% in 1995 to more than 15% in 2021, a four-fold increase.
But for these friends, those numbers don't tell the whole story.
Over time, as I started educating my parents more, they started to understand that cannabis was less destructive to my lifestyle than alcohol. And I even got them to try cannabis.
And how did that go?
They enjoyed it. My mom, she had cancer, and it helped to alleviate some of her symptoms. And for my dad's part, he thought it was pretty fun.
Do you ever miss alcohol?
I never thought about it being here, honestly.
I don't miss it.
This next generation is giving new meaning to the phrase high and dry. For Eye on America, I'm Nikki Batiste in New York City.
A major change in how the federal government treats marijuana could be on the way. President Trump says the DEA is once again reviewing whether to lower the classification of the drug to the same status as, say, aspirin. CBS's Nicole Skanga has been looking into it and joins me now. So, Nicole, marijuana is a Schedule I drug. What does that mean? And what would it mean to reclassify it?
Yeah, John, this would be a major overhaul of federal drug policy, one that would reclassify marijuana from Schedule I, where it sits alongside heroin, ecstasy, LSD, to a less dangerous Schedule III substance, which includes drugs like Tylenol with codeine and anabolic steroids. The Biden administration kickstarted this bureaucratic process, with the DEA offering up the recommendation and opening up the policy for public comment. But they never issued a final rule. So if President Trump followed through on this, it wouldn't legalize weed, but it would make it easier for scientists to study the drug's therapeutic uses and reduce criminal penalties for those convicted of marijuana violations, plus start aligning federal policy with that of a very long list of states.
Speaking of the states, how many states actually have legalized or decriminalized marijuana?
Yeah, well, recreational use of marijuana has been legalized in 24 states and D.C., but another 7 have decriminalized its use, meaning they've removed criminal penalties for possessing and using small amounts of cannabis for personal use. And 40 states roughly allow medical use of cannabis products. Still, there were nearly 6,000 marijuana arrests last year alone, and even though standalone federal marijuana possession prosecutions are pretty rare, the presence of marijuana in a criminal case can create what's called collateral consequences, especially when it involves firearms trafficking, repeat offenses, so it can actually increase the severity of federal charges and create longer sentences for those convicted.
Tonight, our Eye on America takes a look at the country, and tonight we focus on one way it has changed. When the baby boom generation was coming of age, marijuana use was against the law. Well, now, in much of America, it's legal. And as Jim Axelrod reports, some boomers are making up for lost time.
Don Searles is going to a party and doesn't want to show up empty-handed.
Now, son, in goes peanuts.
So he's making peanut brittle, using an old family recipe with a modern-day twist.
But now you got a new ingredient.
Yeah, we added the marijuana, yeah.
The party Don's attending is an old-school pot party, although this one has a new wrinkle. It's at the Trilogy Retirement Community, an hour east of San Francisco, where lately the golf course has a new competitor for popularity.
This is the old style of rolling a joint.
Cannabis. Gail Crawley, the host of the party, is 74 and not at all surprised by some new numbers. Between 2021 and 2023, cannabis use among Americans 65 and older went up 46%.
Does that surprise you at all?
No.
Why not?
Because cannabis is a good solution to a lot of medicinal issues.
And with cannabis now legal in 40 states for medical use and 24 for recreational, the stigma is gone.
I've never smoked a cigarette, a joint.
When it comes to his cannabis, Stephen Clark is strictly an edibles guy.
You're a cannabis guy. What is it about cannabis that you're drawn to?
That it does work on PTSD, pain issues, relaxation issues, brain disorders, heart disease.
That's his experience. But some medical professionals think differently.
If they are smoking marijuana, we can be pretty confident that they're harming their cardiovascular system.
Professor Matt Springer at UC San Francisco has a warning. The active ingredient in marijuana may carry health risks no matter how seniors get it. Smoking it, gummies, even peanut brittle.
For people who get their THC through edibles, what does your study suggest?
It suggests that they might be having an adverse, a harmful effect on their cardiovascular system. If they're eating THC, they're not without risk.
But don't talk to Don Searles about risk. 5 years after a motorcycle accident left him with chronic pain. He needs something.
So there's a new study out. It shows a connection between cannabis use and cardiovascular disease.
It doesn't surprise me. I go to my doctor and he says, geez, quit drinking milk. Stay away from the sugar. You know, what isn't bad for you nowadays?
But despite the warnings, these seniors are happy just the way they are, high and retiring. For Eye on America, I'm Jim Axelrod in Rio Vista, California.
The headlines out of Washington today included the renaming of the Kennedy Center and the reclassifying of marijuana.
No connection between the two events, both reported, though, by Nancy Cordes.
For 55 years, marijuana has been classified as a Schedule I highly controlled drug, alongside heroin and LSD.
That's a good one.
But with the stroke of a pen today, President Trump moved to downgrade cannabis to a less restricted Schedule III drug.
We have people begging for me to do this, people that are in great pain.
The move does not decriminalize pot, but it could remove some barriers to research into medical marijuana and CBD. Still, it makes some lawmakers nervous.
I'm not so sure about that.
We have so many drug issues and so forth, and we want to be protective of our young people.